would it look like if Jesus worked at your company? Let's talk about it with Kris DenBesten on Steve Brown, etc.
He's an old white guy, an author, broadcaster, and seminary professor who's sick of religion. And he's brought friends. Please welcome Steve Brown, etc.
Hey, we're glad you're here. You always have a place at our table. I'm Steve, the aforementioned old white guy. Matthew Porter is the executive producer, and he's here. Football season is over. Time again for Matthew to relearn the names of his kids. You're not really that bad, are you?
No, I'm not that bad.
And our producer, Jinx, is in his little glass booth, and he owns his own business. Hey, Jinx.
Yes, sir.
On National Boss Day, do you give yourself flowers and gifts?
I do that every day.
So you have no trouble with self-image or anything like that?
No.
And I'm impressed with your humility and all.
I work on it daily.
And our video director and one-man IT department, John Myers, is in his tech bunker. We're always very nice to John. And that's not just because he can access all our emails and church histories. We just like him. And Dr. George Bingham is the president of Key Life. George recently invested in real estate, a hotel on Boardwalk, 2 houses on Park Place. You might, it's so bad. You might say he has a monopoly. I don't write this stuff. I read it.
Just on those 2 spaces.
It's just
funny.
Insurance in case the joke didn't
And
go.
Kathy Wyatt is the soft feminine side of the program. Kathy believes few things in life can't be improved with just a little bit more butter. And I've been looking forward to being with our guests during this program. A month or 2 ago, I got a chance to take a tour of his business to see if we had him on the program, if he was lying or was a hypocrite. And I found, to my delight, that business, and he's going to tell us some about it, Vermeer Southeast Sales and Service, when they built your house or your office building, they probably use machinery that his company built. He's a husband, a father, an author, and the CEO of Vermeer Southeast Sales and Service. Ken has written a book, which I now hold in my nicotine-stained fingers. It's called Shine, a vision for life and work that impacts eternity. Kris, it's good to have you with us. I know how busy you are. And tell us a little bit about, I want to know how you made money. We want to get right down to it. And without the present vision that you had, you did okay, didn't you? And then Jesus slapped you upside the head. Tell us this story.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you for having me on the show today. I really appreciate it. What I'll say is I went through a myriad of Kris visions. A vision is to look ahead and say, what would I like it to be like someday? And then to strive and to work really hard to achieve that vision. So starting out as the son of the boss, the SOB, my dad founded our company.
That helps.
Yeah. So I was a certain SOB, son of boss. And, That's actually a really hard role to step into because everybody thinks the only reason you're at the company is because your dad owns the place. And so first of all, I had to prove that I wasn't getting my job just because I was the boss's kid, but that I actually deserved to have a job. I spent a lot of time trying to prove to the people in our company, and especially my dad, that I could do this thing. And then eventually I decided my first real vision was I'm going to prove to everybody in this organization that I can do this job better than better than my dad. Obviously, if I did that, I'd do it better than me too. So
wonderful.
I had to go from here to there. So I needed a vision to motivate me to do that. And then I set other visions. I set visions for how much profit we would make, how much sales we would make at a time and point when we were doing about 20 million in sales. I told our whole company we're going to be $100 million a year company someday. So you get the point. Just really, I was big about vision and setting out a course for where we wanted to go. You mentioned the Lord slapped me aside the head. He really did. But first,
and by the way, you were successful with that vision. I mean, by a lot of standards, the company did become over $100 million company. You were very successful. You had a nice car and a big house. I mean, what do you want? Egg in your beer?
Yeah, all that stuff, for sure. But when we hit the 100 million, it was like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Do we try to shoot for 200 million? What I was doing is I was reaching these visions that I had envisioned for myself, and I wasn't really impacting people or, it was just all about me. And often business it's all about how much money can I make? How much can we grow things? And, that's what it is. And yes, that was successful, but it wasn't significant. And the Lord wanted me to begin to pursue what I call a kingdom vision instead of a Kris vision. And that made all the difference.
Oh, man. Was there a catalyst that brought you to that? Were you a church person? Were you a Christian, a believer, or just an outright pagan?
Yes to all those things some of the times. Yeah, I went to church sometimes. I acted like a Christian sometimes. I acted like a pagan sometimes. So yes to all those. But there was a catalyst moment, and it was really cool. I was having dinner with a bunch of friends that do what I do, bragging about how our businesses had grown. And we were at this restaurant, and this busboy that was cleaning the tables was doing an amazing job. He just had a plan, and he executed well. And by the end of the night, everyone would clap when this busboy would clean a table. And, I was just mesmerized by that. And I couldn't get to sleep that night because I'd seen the world's greatest busboy at work. And I started thinking, what would it be like if people would actually applaud me for the work I would do? That guy was standing out in a way that others took notice and applauded him for the work he did. And that night, when I couldn't get to sleep, in my heart, I heard there's a Bible verse. And I'm thinking, great, what is this all about? I already can't sleep because the world's greatest busboy I can't get out of my mind. And now I got to try to figure out a Bible verse. Got up and found a Bible and stumbled through it and found Matthew 5:16. Let your light so shine before others that they'll see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. And yeah, I'd heard that verse many times before, but that night I heard it for the first time. We are indeed called to stand out, to shine in a way that others would take notice, but not that they would applaud us for the works we do, but that they would applaud our Father in heaven for the work that he does in and through us. And I knew at that moment, I finally had a kingdom vision instead of a Kris vision. So I took it back to our team, brought our managers together, told them I got a mission and a vision from God on my golf trip. And they were like, what did you do on that golf trip, man?
Yeah. Oh, great.
And I go, no, it's to shine. We're going to be a company that shines with excellence. And they're like, well, what does that look like? And I'm like, I have no idea. Read your Bible. It's right there, Matthew 5:16. We're going to shine.
Leaders don't say things like that.
Love that.
You're meeting that kid who was doing his job so well reminds me of a quote from Mark Twain to a group of very successful businessmen. He said, someday you'll meet somebody who has nothing and is happy. And you'll know that you paid too much for your whistle. And that happened to you.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't just throw a Bible on the conference table and say, read it and we'll decide what we're going to do. Although, by the way, just so you know, Vermeer's isn't just owned by Kris. It's owned by the employees, which is an amazing and wonderful thing. And so as I met your staff and went throughout the company, I was talking to bosses. They all owned this vision. Was that a part of the original thing?
No, that was a part of once we settled in on a kingdom vision and began to operate as though we wanted to represent Christ. We knew that we needed to reward the team, turn the vision over to them like Jesus did with his apostles, and let the company run that way. So it was a way to continue the vision, the mission, the culture in a way that would honor and glorify God.
Oh, that's cool. Guys, we're gonna flesh this out in this program, and you're gonna hear an amazing story about how to be in business, even be successful, and serve Christ. There are those of you who are listening who don't think that's possible, and you can't put those things together, but you can, and Kris is going to tell us how. The book is Shine, a vision for life and work that impacts eternity. Don't go away like Jesus. We're going to return. Hey, we're glad you're with us. If you're just tuning in or watching, you're listening to Steve Brown, etc., and we're talking with Kris DenBesten. And he has a book, and you ought to get this, especially if you're in business, but it will benefit everybody. The principles that are taught in this book make all the difference in the world. The name of the book is Shine, a vision for life and work that impacts eternity.
Kris, as we ran into the break, you were in the midst of telling a story of how you got this vision and then started bringing it into the company. Can you just continue the story and then maybe talk about how you came up with the Shine model?
Sure. It was. I came back after that trip and felt like I had this vision from God that I was all excited about and told it to our people, and it just like landed flat. Their big question was, well, that sounds awesome, but what does that look like? How do we do that? And like I said, I have no idea, but we'll figure it out as we go. That just needs to be our vision. We want others to see Christ in us, and we want to shine with excellence. And I felt so strong about it that I decided to hang it on the walls of our building. Our vision is to shine with excellence, Matthew 5:16. And I felt really good about myself because I'd put a Bible verse on the walls of our building. And it did absolutely nothing. I mean, that I know of. Maybe somebody read that Bible verse and the Lord spoke to them through it. I have no idea. But what I was about to learn was, it's not what we write on the walls of our building. It's what we can impart into the hearts of our people, because people believe what they see way more than what they read on the walls of the building. And it became a time of prayer and reflection and reading the Bible and trying to figure it all out with the question of what would Jesus be doing if he came to work here? If we want others to see Christ in us in our work, then naturally we'd say, what would it look like if Jesus came to work here? And it began to, the Lord began to reveal it. Let's just say one letter at a time. We made the word shine an acronym that spelled out our principles that we wanted to follow. And first of all, we knew that if Jesus wanted to come to work in our company, that he'd be serving others. As we know, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Service is a big deal in business. You hear it all the time. Our service sets us apart. Our service is above reproach. Our service, but you know what? In business, service is usually so you can sell more stuff.
Yeah.
And for years we thought, if we serve our customers well, then they're naturally going to buy more stuff from us. But Jesus teaches us that service is more than that. Service isn't something we do so that we can get something in return. Service is actually trying to help make someone else's situation better. So if we wanted to serve like Christ, we'd have to have a heart of servanthood, one that was really caring about the needs of employees, customers, anybody that walked through our door, not for what we could get, but for what it would get them. So first and foremost, that's the most important aspect of our business, was to serve. But the most important thing that we could possibly do is to have a much higher purpose than a paycheck. When you go to work, it's a great thing to prepare and do things and raise money and make money for your family. That's a big part of work. But work is supposed to be about more than a paycheck. It's about and we decided, what's the greatest purpose you could possibly achieve? And that's to honor God with what you do. If our focus is to honor God, then everything else could fall into place. Jesus taught that. He said, I came to do the work of him who sent me. And he continually pointed to his Father in heaven. He continued to honor and glorify his Father in heaven with the work he did, instead of like the typical business where you work really hard to honor yourself. So our greater purpose would be to honor God. We wanted to do it in a way that we continually improved. That's improve continually. That's the I in shine. How do we come better tomorrow than we are today? The Christian life is all about that. When we accept Christ, we're on this journey of every day stepping ahead in faith and trying to become more and more like him every day along the way, so that he can take us to heaven one day and live with him forever. So he was all about improving continually. I often think that, Jesus spent 30 years as a carpenter preparing for his 3 years of ministry. He was all about improving not only himself, but improving the lives of those around him. The navigate by values is the end. We had values, but I wouldn't say we were navigating by them. Like I said before, they were on that same statement that hung on the wall. We had our values on the wall, and then we had this vision on the wall. And, values aren't what you're supposed to read on the wall. Values are what you're supposed to see lived out day by day. And if you're living out godly values, then you'll begin to see eternal fruit. You'll begin to see lives change. People will see what you're doing and go, there's something different here. And that was our goal, never to say we're a Christian company or you should look at us, but just to live our lives in a way that others would take notice and go, what's different? And that gives your opportunity to say what's different is we're Christ focused. We aspire to be like him. And hopefully you see that in the way we live our lives and run our business. And finally, the E, excel in relationships. Whatever business you're in, that's the reason you're in business. You make money, you do something productive, you sell a good product, whatever, those are all really good things. But the main reason we're in business is to excel in relationships, because what does God care most about? The hearts and souls of other people. So if we can excel in relationships, it's great for business, but it's also our calling in Christ. So if that becomes the reason, it's the why we do things. It's about people before profit. It's about purpose before process. We need to make our work about excelling in relationships. And when we do that, we represent Christ in the best way.
Well, and one of the interesting things about that model, it seems like, and of course, you do have honoring God as part of one of the elements, but really that's a model that non-believers can accept very readily, I would think, and especially in our kind of modern incarnation of business and motivation and so forth. So I would assume that even your non-believing employees can feel a part of that.
Yeah, they do. And, when I first started laying this out, I always use my precursor, and it was, this is what I believe. You don't have to believe what I believe. I'm not trying to push my beliefs on you. I just want you to know where it comes from. And I want you to know that I believe so much in it that it's become our company's vision. And if you will follow these principles, You'll grow your character. You'll enjoy your time here at the company. You'll be a successful employee and person. And yeah, the principles, though they're from the Bible and they're representing Christ, they work for anybody, regardless of their belief systems.
Mm-hmm. In fact, when I was the tour there, I met a couple of employees that would not describe themselves as believers. I didn't say, so you're going to hell. Do you ever think about that? But I asked them what it was like without their knowing why I was asking to work for the company. And you're right. Man, if I were a total pagan, I'd want a boss like you and a company like you run. And I can't imagine anybody not being glad to work in a place like that. Guys, we're going to talk about this a lot more. This is so good. And it's not just about business, it's about us. We need to shine in exactly the same way. And we'll tell you how when we come back. Hey, thanks for being with us. We consider that a high and holy compliment that you spend time with this program. We're hanging out with Kris DenBesten, and you can keep up with Kris at shinevision.com. That's shinevision.com.
Kris, first, really enjoyed the book. You might not guess it, me being the one responsible for the dumb jokes at the open, but business books are kind of one of the main things that I do read. Edward Demings, Peter Drucker, Robert Iger, love all those. So this fits really well into that. I'm curious to know who would you say the book is for? Is it just for CEOs? Or is it kind of just for kind of maybe anybody with kind of the entrepreneurial spirit who wants to kind of build something and impact not just the bottom line, but lives?
Man, that is a great question. The book originally, we wrote it for a Christian that is a CEO or a C-level, perhaps an owner, but that is a leader in an organization and can lead change or lead vision, that type of thing. Of course, publishers like to be able to sell a lot of books. So they tried to make it a wider net so that more people could read it. And, I do believe that the principles are for every employee. The book is written toward a business owner leader, but the principles are for anyone. And we like to say it, life and work. So great question.
Awesome.
Kris, I was looking at the just at the table of contents, and interesting that you just said the target audience at the very beginning, and you're looking at all these various things that you've listed that you can apply as far as business is concerned. Could you touch a little bit on how all of this works? How does this play out when you move over from your business life into your personal life? I'm assuming you're going to say that everything is applicable, but can you relate some specific instances from that standpoint?
Oh, there's so many. If you're going to read Matthew 5:16, it says, let your light shine before others that they'll see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. But if you're going to read chronologically, 14 and 15 comes first. That's where Jesus tells his disciples, you're the light of the world. You're like a city set on a hill that can't be hidden. And you don't light a lamp and put it under a basket. You put it on a stand, and it brings light to all who are in the house. Again, in the house.
Yeah.
He was saying, basically, the way you read that is be a light where you are. And if you'll be a light where you are, then I can make you a light to the world. So, where would I spend the majority of my time? At the office. But I really needed to start with being a light at home in my own house. And I think that's a scenario that happens often with people that are real busy in business, leaders that are, trying to lead a business and move towards personal success. Is it comes at a cost, and that's that they're not really being a light at home. And I can remember one time when my wife said, "I love what you're doing at work, but I wish you could bring some of that shine home with you." Mm-hmm. That's quite a statement. And I think it's an important word for anyone that puts a lot of energy and focus on their work, is that Jesus wants to make us a light to the world, but it starts in our own home. It's a lesson I learned the hard way. I would do this great work at the business and then come home to a wife who didn't feel appreciated or loved enough. And it was actually when we did sell the business to the employees, I was doing a devotional one morning, and it said, write down the 3 things that you would die for. So I quickly wrote down my faith. I think I would do that. My kids, I think I would do that. And my wife. And the Lord just hit me with, be real. He said, just be real. And I began to think about it. What would my life show? It would show that the 3rd thing I would die for was my work. It was out of whack. And I had to put my wife on that line. And he said, well, go tell her that. And I'm like, Lord, I don't want to do that. I don't want to tell her that. But the Lord told me to, so I did. And to make a long story short, she forgave me almost instantly. She accepted that, I had put the business before her and that I wanted to change. And I began to really focus in on how I could do that and make her feel loved, because that was more important than making my customers or my employees feel loved. And I had neglected that. So I've been working on that and continue to work on it. And hopefully, I'll be shining at home as well as at work.
That's so good. Most guys would have responded to that kind of comment from their wives. Listen, how do you think you're driving that nice car and living in this nice house? It's because I'm busting my rear trying to provide it for you. And that doesn't make Jesus very happy. I'm glad you listened and you brought your witness here. I think all of us could learn from that too, especially if we're driven in the wrong way, a road that Jesus doesn't walk. The name of the book is Shine, a vision for life and work that impacts eternity. And we're not just talking about principles, we're talking about an illustration of what God can do with that. Hey, thanks for being with us. In case you don't know, we have an email we send out once a week. It's called the Key Life Connection. And the best part is that we put it on our website and it's free. And there are those who say that's because that's what it's worth. But they're wrong. Great insights. And if you want to be a part of it, go to keylife.org/subscribe. Kris, you have mentioned off air a significant place in your life. People would think with your success and the success of the company, and you're getting it, working on it with your wife, things are going really well. And maybe somebody would say, if I had all that, I'd be religious too. If I had all that, I'd write a book like the one Kris wrote, but I'm going through hell. Kris, it hasn't been that easy, has it?
Well, it never is. I'd love to say, yeah, once we decided that we were going to make a Christ-centered vision our focus, that everything smoothed out and life went just wonderful. But the truth is, not long after we made that our company vision, in the year 2008, my daughter wasn't feeling very well. Went to the doctor and they thought she just had the flu like the rest of our family did, but she wasn't getting any better. And by Christmas Eve, my wife took her back to the pediatrician, called me from an ambulance and really concerned and said, you got to meet us over at the hospital. And it's there that we found out that a virus had attacked her heart. The same virus we had, and it passed through us, had stayed in her heart. And it's a condition called viral myocarditis. And a third of the people that get that, if it's not too bad, can survive it. A third need a heart transplant and a third die. That was our Christmas Eve of 2008, finding that out. And we prayed for her to be in the good 1/3. But by about 8 o'clock that night, we realized that she was not going to be in the good 1/3. In fact, as they were putting her on a breathing tube, she screamed out, "I'm going to die." It was the last words I heard from her that evening. And the next morning, with her being on full life support, the doctor said, there's nothing we can do for your daughter. And my wife and I now call that the greatest Christmas gift ever, because at that worst moment a parent could imagine, there was this peace, a peace that passes all understanding. And what I heard when the doctor said there's nothing we can do is that only God can do this now. And my wife, Robin, said, interesting, when the doctor said that, what I heard is she's not in their hands anymore. She's in God's hands. And, as a moment like that, where we got this sense of peace, we realized if the Lord wanted to keep her in his hands and she was in heaven, then that would be her healing. And we needed to be okay with that. Though we did pray that he would send her back to us, and that there would be a miracle healing of her. To make a real long story short, they, after a couple of days, said she's not getting any better. We don't know what's going to happen here, but we might have a medical experiment that you might be a candidate for. There was a machine called a Berlin heart that had not been approved by the FDA, had not been done much in the United States. It was a machine that would actually take over as someone else's heart and keep them alive for a longer period of time while they waited on a heart transplant. A doctor at the University of Florida had done it 3 times. So we went there and became a medical experiment. My 9-year-old daughter became a medical experiment and received this machine that kept her alive. It was a spiritual journey. It was a physical journey. We ended up being there for over 4 months. And it's when I realized why the Lord really did give me the message of Shine. It wasn't really to grow a business. It wasn't really to, do all that. It was to prepare me for a time that I really needed to lean in and trust him. My wife would walk through this intensive care unit singing praise songs. Everybody knew it was her daughter on life support, this crazy machine. And that's when we realized that your light's needed most when you walk through the darkest places. And a pediatric intensive care unit is one of the darkest places that I've ever been. So we were called to shine at work, at home, in all circumstances. And it was the crucible of faith that made all the difference. I look back at it now and I'm so glad it happened. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, and I certainly wouldn't wish it, on myself again. But it was that moment when we really realized that our faith was real. And the most impressive thing was that our 9-year-old daughter displayed such faith. On April 15, they were going to take her in to give her a new heart. They had found one, and we were praying before she went into the room. And I prayed a dad prayer. Let the doctors do wonderful work. Let this heart be exactly what she needs. Let this, let everything go the way I want it to, God. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, the scripture tells us to make our requests known to the Lord. But my 9-year-old daughter, just before she went in to get her heart taken out and a new heart put in, said, "Dear Lord, I thank you that you sent this heart in. I prayed that it would heal me. But I want you to know if it doesn't work out the way I want it to, I'm still going to trust you, God."
Ooh. Man.
When do we pray like that? I mean, that's the faith of a young child. That's the kind of faith that God uses to move our mountains for us. And, her example of true faith and just trusting to say, even if it doesn't work out how I want it to, I'll still trust you. It's that kind of true faith. And that's what it's all about.
So I got the feeling if your business failed, if everything went south, if nothing were working, you would say exactly the same thing you have said with us on this program.
I would.
I know.
That's what it's all about.
I'm a cynical old preacher. Sometimes I see the real deal, and you're that. We very much appreciate your taking your time to be with us. My mentor, Fred Smith, was often asked if you can be successful and be Christian at the same time. What would you say to that?
Be Christian and you'll be successful.
That's what he said, too. Listen, you're not only the real deal, you're wise, too. Kris, again, thank you so much for being with us. I hope we can do this again.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
God bless you. Guys, you ought to get this book. You really should. It's a book for life. But if you're in business and you're a leader, this book is a game changer. It's called Shine. And that sounds like a pedestrian title, but it's not. It's an acrostic. And the principles are absolutely amazing. It's Shine, a vision for life and work that impacts eternity. Get it, and you'll rise up and call us blessed for having told you about it. Don't go away. We'll tell you who's going to be with us next week. Hey, it's been a good hour, and we're so glad you've been a part of it with us. We took a vote and decided that Kris is the real deal. There's such reality to him, such lack of sham and pretense, just laying it out and saying, this is what it is, and this is what's happened. And if you ever get a chance to go to his company, any of his employees will give you a tour, and you'll be impressed in how this works out in business. And you heard when his daughter was close to death that it works out in life too. I don't know. I really don't know how people who are not believers get through life. Life is just plain hell sometimes. And if you're in business and you go through a pandemic and you can't sell product or pay your employees, when things are not good at home and you don't want to go there because it's supposed to be a soft place and it's not, when your kids aren't living the way you want them to, or your parents were abusive, and things are really, really dark and painful, when you're lonely and you're afraid, man, that's what life's about. It's not for sissies. And maybe it's created that way. Maybe it's not only our hearts that were created empty and don't find their rest until they find their rest in Him. Maybe our lives are messed up and we don't get any peace until we find our peace in Him. If you're not a believer, I get that. I mean, there's a lot to cause you not to be a believer. But if I were you, I'd check it out. I think Kris's words are real, and Jesus is real too. Makes all the difference in the world. Kathy, who's going to be with us next week?
Next week's going to be another really, really good one. Our guest is Jason Baxter. He is a graduate of Notre Dame University and an associate professor at Wyoming Catholic College. And he has written a book titled The Medieval Mind of C.S. Lewis, How Great Books Shaped a Great Mind. I can't wait to hear this.
Oh,
This is going to be great.
You guys who are into book burning, you better show next week. You're going to learn some things that'll really make that's what we're doing today. We're dipping into history, medieval and other places, and then we're getting those books and saying they're racist and shallow and homophobic, so burn them. We'll write our own books. Thank you. So join us next week, same time, same place. We'll be here. We hope you will be too. And between now and then, don't do anything we wouldn't do. And that gives you a wide, wide berth.